A pretty good recruiting week, Richie, for Florida State. They didn't hit on every target. They missed on a couple of guys that it seemed like were trending away anyway. But they did hit on a couple. Max Redmond, a 3-star that ended up committing to the Noles. I don't think that was a surprise by any means, but you get a kid that can either play like nickel corner, he can play safety, big, long, physical kid, 6'2", who I think Florida State really, really likes, and a kid that, you look at his offer list and it says Memphis and USF, and those are who your high competition. A kid that I don't think is going to have like just a transcendent rise into the rankings, but a kid that I do think could end up being really good for Florida State, and may take some time to develop, but you can't teach size, you can't teach athleticism. Somebody that I know the staff is really, really high on. I know that it hurts the blue chip ratio and drops it from 100% down to like 91%. Which is just, unacceptable by this staff. But a kid that I think Florida State's really excited about having, a kid that I think under Pat Surtain could develop really, really well.
Yeah, and like you said, I think the staff has proven that they're going to do a good job on their evaluations, and I'm not going to question them. Like you said, we all love the blue chip ratio because, certainly by next year, Florida State's going to be in that crowd of 50+%. But I do think it's not really early anymore because this time of year used to be really early in the recruiting rankings or evaluations. But I definitely think the staff is not going to take a commit right now unless it's somebody they really wanted. And I wouldn't be surprised to see other teams try and get in on him later. It reminds me of Jimbo, how, he would hit on almost every quarterback evaluation. He would offer somebody, and then you'd see Nick Saban come in a week later and offer that same quarterback. And I think that's kind of where Mike and Surtain and where this staff is. So if they're going to take a kid right now, a commit, and let it go public, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, no, we talked about that last week, just kind of their strategy. I think you take less project type guys in any class. That's not to say that Redmond's like a day one guy or anything. Like, I do think he's going to take some development. But Mike talked to us when we were in Tampa about the senior season being a big key for them. And man, they saw Redmond in a camp and they absolutely fell in love with his skill set, and they really liked what he brought. And man, if they got in earlier on him than everybody else did, then great. And yeah, if other teams start to come in and try and battle for that recruit, then obviously you're going to have your kind of work cut out for you to keep him in. But, a lot of the recruits that Florida State has, like, other teams are battling for. So that's certainly not something new. But yeah, you hate to, like, I think the big thing is, like, when you get a kid that's like rated lower, right, or doesn't have the Alabama offer or the Ohio State offer, when you have like 10 of those kids, it's hard to like pitch like, oh man, this is another one of those hidden gems. This is another one of those guys that like is when you have like all blue chips and one guy that's a little bit lower rated by a certain, recruiting evaluation company, you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to side with the coach that continues to get really good DB play and probably has a guy that could be a first rounder this year, playing a defensive back. Maybe I'll side with Pat Surtain and Mike Norvell on this. Okay. I want to talk about Dalen McCutcheon. We'll give Jasper some love here as well. Jasper, thank you for the super chat. We can play on noise for him real quick, Carlin. And then I have a question for Richie before we go on.
Touchdown, Florida State! Touchdown, FSU!
Jasper, I appreciate the love. You probably went a little bit harder. That's probably not actually accurate, but I appreciate you for saying it.
It's not accurate at all.
I'm not reading it on here because I just feel like my head won't fit through the door if I actually say that out loud. But Jasper, I do love you and appreciate the support. Okay, everybody's talking about how Azariah Thomas could be a first-round pick this year, or first or second. Fentrell Cypress was like billed as like that guy, like that shutdown guy. I'm surprised if we go back to like this time last year, I'm surprised he's actually on the roster again because of how high his billing was. Now, I think he wasn't bad. That had more to do with like Renardo and Jarian being like out of this world good. But everybody's talking about like how good Thomas is going to be and like how he could like lock up a late first round pick or maybe an early, like a second round pick or something. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Florida State could have another 2 corners drafted in the first 3 rounds again. I know that we're doing recruiting right now, but just quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Thomas, he's kind of the sexy pick, right? I think his ceiling is extremely high, but I think Cypress, if he's healthy, second year in the system, people forget we were super excited when we got him from Virginia. Like, he was an all ACC cornerback, and he's someone that I think if he's healthy and is comfortable, and again, I think we have one of the best DB coaches in the nation. Yeah, I think Cypress he could definitely work his way into the top 3 rounds and maybe even a second round pick. I don't know about first round. AZ, he's the guy that, the measurables at the combine, he's going to kill it. He's going to test off the charts. But I think you have a really good defensive back room, and it starts with those 2 guys, especially at corner.
Yeah, I don't think he would pass. I mean, I'd love to be shocked by that, not, because I want to see AZ like move down, but I'd love for Cypress to come out and be better than what we're expecting. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if they were both like, if we had 2 more top 3 picks in the, out of the cornerback room, and you start to turn that over again and again and again, and then you got guys like Charles Lester and others, 5-star type talents like coming behind them. You start to get pretty excited about what you could just continue to build in that room. So, all right, Dalen McCutcheon also committed to Florida State. It seemed like this one might be trending away from the Noles a little bit. I actually got word, and I said this in the Discord, so if you haven't signed up over there, maybe now is a good time to go check it out. I actually got word, and I put in the Discord, like, man, I don't feel a lot of confidence from this. Like, the people that I normally chat with about recruiting haven't given me the thumbs up, or haven't told me like, hey, it's definitely FSU. But I put it in there on Friday afternoon. Like, man, I just got told by kind of not a typical source, not a typical person, that like he's pretty sure it's FSU, feels really good, has a couple of like, he couldn't, usually I won't put a like, hey, this is a definite thing, unless I'm told, by like, I want to know like the why, like, how do you know this is really what, and so a lot of times we'll get told like, well, he's agreed to this or he said this. And so then we'll be a little more confident and stuff. And so like, I didn't really get the why. And I think he did a really good job of keeping things under wraps. But I was told the why. I was told like, hey, I feel this is pretty confident. I feel like this is about to happen. And so kind of shared that we did share that in the Discord, kind of also gave the how would you say, like the disclaimer of like, don't take it for gold, but there is some confidence. And he ends up picking Florida State in a battle that was largely based on not only what, we could do for him at the wide receiver position and relationships, but a battle that you had to go out and win. NIL wise, I think USC's NIL's kind of, I don't know, in shambles right now, and they're promising kids and not paying once they get to campus. And that over-promising, under-delivering makes it extremely tough for teams that are going up against USC in recruiting battles, because if a kid gets promised X millions of dollars and he's not going to not get that until he gets to campus. And so he's already signed with that school. Now, obviously he could transfer later. You've seen that a lot with USC, but it still makes it really difficult for other NILs to say like, it's hard to tell a kid like, no, they're lying to you, because if I was 18 and somebody was promising me millions of dollars, I'd probably, think everybody's telling the truth too. So anyway, a really good, kids top 100, Florida State's got 2 of the better wide receiver commits in the country. There are definitely schools that have, higher rated guys, but 2 wide receivers that are just absolute ballers. Florida State is in a really, really good position with both, CJ Wiley and Dalen McCutcheon. And, they need to continue to stack talent there. That room it's a room that we have a lot of questions about right now, but it's a room that I think could have a lot of talent in it, in a year or 2. You're talking about if Hakeem Williams develops and if Destin Hill is able to get over kind of this injury bug that he's got. And then you've got Elijah Moore that a lot of people are excited about. And you then add 2 more top 100 type wide receivers. It's a room that, with a quarterback like a Luke Kromenhoek, could be really elite for several years. All right, I'll get right back to it, but first, I want to give some love to our friends over at GotSpears.com. We appreciate John and his team for all that they do for us here at Double Fries No Slaw, and they are still running this deal through the end of the month, so you've got about a half a month left to get a $100. That's an in-person price on his 6-foot spears. They've also got the 6-foot spear with the torch. It's a little more. It's 165. You can pick that up in person, whether you live around the Tallahassee area or you're going to a game this year. Just send him a text. Give him about a 2 weeks notice as to when you're going to be coming and picking that up, which game you're going to. And you won't have to pay for shipping. You won't have to wait. They're super backed up. If you're still waiting on one, send him a text. Go pick it up in person, whether you're going to a game or you've got somebody local in town that can get it for you. Appreciate John for his support. Also, go check them out, gotspears.com right now.
Yeah, and anytime you get a guy from Texas who Texas wanted, that's a big deal. USC, you talked about their NIL kind of being a complete disaster right now. So that maybe played a role. But anytime, I do think, Brian Hartline wanted him at Ohio State as well. And beating Brian Hartline for a wide receiver is a big deal, no matter who it is. I think that's a great job by Ron Dugans and Mike Norvell, selling a vision, saying, hey, listen, come to our offense. This is what we can do. It helps you out of Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson both get drafted this past year. You can start selling that stuff. But I think stealing a Texas receiver away from Texas, who is now in the SEC, that's not easy. And we talked about it last week with CJ Wiley. These recruitments are not over, and Florida State is going to have to stay on top of it. I think they will. I think they do both sign with Florida State, but it's going to be, if you come out and look how I think we're going to look this season, I think you're going to be good. And one team that was kind of really in the mix a little bit was SMU, and we know they do not struggle with NIL. The SMU is one of those schools that has all the money in the world, and they definitely probably would have outbid us for sure. But again, it's SMU versus Florida State, so it's not a big deal. But beating Texas and Ohio State and UFC, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, and Florida State really does have to work, I think, to hold on to both wide receivers. I think that, it goes without saying, right? Like, you got to hold on to anybody in your class. I mean, every school's trying to, UGA was trying to get Luke Krummenhoek to flip late in the cycle last year. And so, they're going to go after every one of your recruits, just like we are. You should keep going. Like, there are kids at UF that we're going to keep going after, and kids at Miami that we're going to that's just part of the game. But it goes out, these wide receivers, I think, are of like utmost importance. Like, I think that, they're commitments that you really did have to, kind of pony up, no pun intended on the SMU thing, but you did have to really pony up and pay to be competitive against some really competitive NIL type stuff. And CJ Wiley was a complete shock, and Dalen McCutcheon was one that you felt like might be trending away from you, but you were able to land him, and you got to stay on those, because you don't have a lot of, backup options if things start to go south there, and you need to continue to improve that wide receiver room and get it better and better. So as far as going forward, nothing. I don't know that there's a ton just absolutely imminent right now. Stay tuned to the channel, and we'll certainly do our best to kind of like continue. I know that there are other DB targets that are actually committing this week and in the weeks coming. Kind of waiting to see how things continue on and how things continue to progress with Florida State going forward. On the recruiting trail, I think, what is it, Richie? Is it 12 blue chips and 1 3-star? So It's like a 91 and change blue chip ratio. Not awful for Mike Norvell and company.
I can live with that.
Yeah, let's continue to improve that. Let's continue to increase that. I think Alabama actually just passed us, but I think right now we have the number 6 best average, right? It's a smaller class. I don't know that they signed 30 guys, but it's a smaller class, but they have they still have 13 guys. But the number 6 average right now in all of college football recruiting. Ohio State's ahead, Georgia's ahead, Alabama's ahead, Oregon might be ahead, so that's 4, and then somebody else, maybe like Texas or something. I don't know. I don't have the graphic in front of me, but